Shakespeare's comedies are famous for their romance and their super sharp wit, but I don't think any of them get quite as magical or as flat out chaotic as A Midsummer Night's Dream. It's this amazing story about lovers, fairies, and, believe it or not, a group of amateur actors who all crash into each other on one wild, enchanted night. So let's get lost in the woods, shall we? And really, is there a better place to start? This one line from the mischievous little sprite named Puck is basically the entire play in a nutshell. It's a hilarious and sometimes kind of biting look at just how silly we humans can be, especially when we're falling in love. And isn't it interesting that Shakespeare gives this perfect observation to someone who isn't even human? Someone just watching all the madness from the outside? Here's where the real genius of the play is. Shakespeare takes three totally separate groups of people and just smashes their stories together. You've got the very proper, very serious young lovers from the big city of Athens. Then you've got the ancient, powerful, and feuding fairies who rule the forest. And finally, you have this bumbling troupe of actors. And over one single night, their lives are about to get completely, hopelessly tangled up. Okay, so you might think a story like this would start in the magic forest, right? Well, nope. Our story actually kicks off in the very strict, rule-based city of Athens, where all the human drama is already about to boil over. So on the surface, everything in Athens looks great. It's a party. The leader, Duke Theseus, is getting ready for his big wedding to Hippolyta, the queen of the Amazons. But underneath all that celebration and ceremony, there is a seriously messy love quadrangle that's about to blow up. And here is that messy crisis, right here. It's a doozy. Hermia's dad is forcing her to marry Demetrius. The problem? Hermia is head over heels for Lysander, and lucky for her, he's in love with her too. But wait, it gets messier. Demetrius used to be with Hermia's best friend, Helena, and poor Helena is still completely hung up on him. You got all that? Yeah, it is a complete and total mess. So Hermia's dad gives her this insane choice. Marry Demetrius, go live in a convent for the rest of your life, or be put to death. Seriously, those are her options. And that's when Lysander drops this famous line, which is, the understatement of the year. Their only solution? They decide to run away together into the big dark forest right outside the city. But here's the thing. As our lovers are running into the woods thinking they're finding freedom, they have absolutely no idea that they're walking straight into another world. A world that has a major royal drama of its own going on. All right, so let's meet the fairy royalty. Oberon, the king, and Titania, the queen. And they are in the middle of a really nasty fight. What's it about? They're basically in a custody battle over this little boy. Titania won't give him up, so Oberon gets furious and decides he's going to get some truly humiliating magical revenge. And this right here, this magic flower, is the engine that's going to drive all the chaos. Oberon's plan is to put the juice on Titania's eyes while she sleeps, so she'll fall in love with the first disgusting thing she sees. But right then, he sees Demetrius being awful to Helena in the woods, and he decides, hey, why not meddle a little more? So he tells his sidekick Puck to go put the potion on the Athenian guy's eyes too. What could go wrong? And this, my friends, is where everything goes so wonderfully, hilariously wrong. All three of our groups are now in the same forest, under the same moonlight, and the magic is about to fly. So Puck, being Puck, zips off to find an Athenian man, but you guessed it, he finds the wrong one. He puts the potion on Lysander's eyes, and who's the first person Lysander sees when he wakes up? Helena. Instantly. Bam, he is completely obsessed with her, totally forgetting his true love Hermia and chasing after a very, very confused Helena. As if that wasn't enough, this is when our third group shows up. They're a bunch of local workers led by a guy named Peter Quince, and they like to call themselves actors. Their big star is the incredibly over-the-top Nick Bottom, and they've come to the woods to secretly rehearse their very serious and probably very, very bad play. Puck spots these guys rehearsing and just can't resist having some fun. So he pulls off his masterpiece. He magically gives Nick Bottom the head of a donkey. Yeah, a donkey head. When Bottom walks back to his friends, they all scream and run for their lives, leaving poor Quince to shout this amazing line. Bottom has literally been translated or transformed. And guess who just happens to be taking a nap nearby? Queen Titania. She wakes up, her eyes still tingling from the love potion, and the very first thing she sees is this dude with a donkey's head. And she falls instantly, deeply, poetically in love with him. It is hands down one of the weirdest and funniest scenes Shakespeare ever wrote. Meanwhile, the human drama is just exploding. Puck tries to fix his first mistake by putting the potion on Demetrius too. But now both men are desperately in love with Helena, so Helena is convinced they're all playing some horrible joke on her, and poor heartbroken Hermia has no idea why her fiancé and her suitor have both dumped her for her best friend. It becomes a massive four-person shouting match in the middle of the woods. Okay, so at this point, even Oberon looks at the complete and utter mess he and Puck have made and basically says, all right, enough's enough. Time to clean this up. So before the sun comes up, he sets a plan in motion to fix everything. Puck gets the lovers to fall asleep and fixes the spells. Lysander is back in love with Hermia, but they cleverly just leave the spell on Demetrius. So now he actually is in love with Helena. Problem solved? Oberon also frees Titania, who is absolutely disgusted to see what she's been fawning over. When the Duke finds the four of them in the morning, he's so happy that he overrules Hermia's dad and declares it'll be a triple wedding. And what about our star actor Bottom? Well, he wakes up fully human again with just this foggy, incredible memory of hanging out with the Fairy Queen. And his attempt to explain what happened, to describe his dream, just perfectly captures how everyone feels about the whole night. That it was this magical thing you can't quite explain. So everyone goes back to Athens, leaving the crazy forest behind. The whole thing ends with this massive triple wedding, and for entertainment, the Mechanicals finally get to perform their play. And of course, it is so hilariously, wonderfully awful, and it's just the perfect comedic ending. So that's the whirlwind of a story. But what's really cool about this play isn't just the plot, it's how Shakespeare actually created it. It's a pretty fascinating backstory. Now, get this. This is what's so amazing. Most of the time, Shakespeare was adapting his plays from old history books or other stories. But with A Midsummer Night's Dream, it seems like he just made it up. He borrowed some characters and ideas, sure, but the central plot, this brilliant, wild idea of weaving three worlds together, that was all him. Pure, unfiltered Shakespeare. So just for a little context, he probably wrote this around 1595 or 1596, and it was likely performed for the first time at some fancy wedding. It got printed in 1600, and then later it was included in the legendary First Folio in 1623, which really cemented its place as one of the greatest comedies ever. The play ends in the most perfect way possible. Puck steps out onto the stage and speaks directly to us, to the audience. He calls the actors shadows and says, hey, if you thought this whole thing was a little silly, if we offended you, just do one thing, just pretend it was all a dream. And really, that's the question the play leaves us with. Where does reality stop and illusion take over? All the characters in the play convince themselves that the whole night was just some crazy dream, and Puck invites us to do the very same thing. It's the perfect ending because it leaves you wondering about the weird magic of love, of imagination, and what might really be happening out there in the woods when nobody's